think if there was a competition for being a procrastinator, I'd be a pro procrastinator. Point being, I would procrastinate so much, like constantly. I still remember I'd sit down at my desk to study, open my computer, stare at the screen, and then somehow end up reorganizing my room, watching study with me videos instead of actually studying, or reading the live chat on YouTube of the lo-fi girl. Like that's when you know you're like bad procrastinating. But the worst part wasn't even the procrastination actually. It was the guilt. Like I felt lazy, weak, like there was something wrong with me, and that sense of shame and just frustration was the worst because I wanted good grades. So why couldn't I just sit down to study, do the work? But actually I realized then, following that, something that completely changed the way I study. Procrastination actually is a good sign. And it sounds crazy, but hear me out. Every student procrastinates. But actually when I made this subtle shift, I went from what I just described and I was able to turn my procrastination into something productive, which sounds impossible, but I promise it's true. Just watch the video, and I actually started acing my exams. So here's what I started noticing. Every single time I felt that resistance, right? So I'm sitting down to try and study, and then I feel that little bit of resistance, I really don't want to do this feeling. I realized that actually I had two options, and I didn't even realize that this was even a choice. But actually, now that I think about it, it was always these two options. And option one was the thing that I always defaulted to. It was like that choice was already defaulted, and that was what I was doing. So option one is switching lanes. Does chemistry feel hard? Cool, let's clean the desk instead. Maths confusing? I'll scroll instead. Let's reorganize my notion. Is your essay overwhelming? It's time to suddenly do something else. And procrastination in these cases doesn't even have to be scrolling or doing something else completely. Procrastination is just doing something else than what you set out to do. So in these cases, that's why I so often just end up cleaning my room or doing something else completely. But here's the problem. When I defaulted to that choice of switching lanes, it was just impossible to come back through. Your brain already escaped the threat. And that is what procrastination is, right? Your brain, it associates something as threatening, like your ego's on the line. Because if you try to do something, but you end up failing, that is a really big reason why people procrastinate, just fear. And I'm going to get into all the big reasons of procrastination later. But yeah, that's one of them. Point being, if you made that decision to switch lanes, your brain has already escaped the threat. So why would it voluntarily walk back into it? And that's where I was losing countless hours. But actually, there was always another option that I didn't even realize. This is what productive procrastination means, right? This is what the whole premise of the video is. Instead of switching lanes, there's always this other option. And once I realized this, it changed everything. And it was, you could reduce the incline. There's this hill you need to climb, right? Imagine this big mound hill. What you end up doing when instead of going up, that looks really difficult, your brain's like, oh, let's do something else. I just switch lanes. But what you can actually do is just reduce the incline of that track. Productive procrastination is when you feel resistance to a big task, but instead of escaping that, you downshift the difficulty while staying in the same cognitive lane. Normal procrastination would be like, you see the big task, you switch domain, you escape. Whereas productive procrastination is you see the big task, you reduce the scope, you stay in the domain, and you gain momentum. So what does this practically look like? You're sitting down to do a big essay and you really want to procrastinate it. Well, you actually can procrastinate it, but do it productively. What does this mean? Instead of writing the whole essay, which is the task right now, procrastinate that into just writing the introduction. It's the same subject, you're still on the task, you're technically but procrastinating it by lowering the intensity. So instead of, for example, revise the whole chapter, it just becomes, let's do one exam question instead. Instead of writing the whole essay, just the first paragraph. Instead of study 2 hours, just 10 minutes. Notice what's happening here. You're not running away from discomfort, you're reducing it to a size you can tolerate. And this difference changes everything, because your brain doesn't actually hate effort, it just hates being overwhelmed. And a lot of the time, we tell ourselves, okay, we have to write the whole essay, do the big thing. But there's this concept in psychology where you perform your best when the challenge is just slightly above your current ability, not impossible. And that's why when you tell yourself you have to write the 5,000 word essay, it feels too hard, too boring. The sweet spot is where your focus actually kicks in. So we can manage that by lowering the incline just to a level where it's hard enough. Imagine you're at the gym, right? And you're doing the treadmill. I don't know if we've all probably tried the treadmill, right? If you set the speed to 35, and your friend sets it to 35, right? And you're like, okay, hop on. You're probably gonna be like, bro, I'm gonna get hurt. Not only that, it's just too fast. It's impossible. So you'll probably go and, I don't know, do rowing instead, or you'll go and drink water from the water fountain. Point being, you're gonna do anything but the task. If you started walking on the treadmill and then your friend starts increasing the speed until it's too fast, just decrease the speed a couple of notches until it's comfortable. And you're like, okay, yeah, this isn't too bad, and you keep on doing it. And actually, as you're doing the thing, when you're walking on the treadmill at speed 14.5, and it's actually pretty, and you put it down to 7.5. Okay, 7.5 is actually pretty doable. Let's bring it up to 8, then 8.5, then 9. You can actually adjust it, right? When you make it easy and manageable. How can we apply this to study? When you productively procrastinate by doing what I said and lower the incline a little, suddenly it's easier to continue and start moving. 1 question turned into 3, 10 minutes turned into 40. Not because I forced myself, but simply because I removed the threat. That's when my grades started transforming. And this was the power of productive procrastination. But now I'm going to tell you the 3 main types of procrastination, because you have to actually realize that specific moment that, oh, I'm about to procrastinate, let me make the other choice. Because if you don't even if you're not able to catch yourself in that moment of having to make the choice, you can't even apply this, right? So here are the 3 main modes or mediums that procrastination comes under, so that you can recognize it next time and actually just lower the incline. So the first one is that I don't know where to start procrastination. This one is subtle. You open the textbook, you stare at the page, and your brain just goes blank. It's just unclear. This usually happens when the task is too vague. Revise biology, because what does that even actually mean? Your brain hates ambiguity, okay? It burns energy just trying to decide what to do first. It's called decision fatigue. So when you start with such a vague task, I don't know where to start, it chooses the easier thing to do and defaults. It switches tasks and just procrastinates instead. So how do you combat this one? You shrink it into a specific action, not revise biology, but answer question 3 on page 42. And then within that, if you feel like you're procrastinating that as well, just do 1 question on that page. For another example, not work on an essay, but write 3 bullet points for the intro. Just that. Specificity, remember, removes threat, and clarity creates motion. And the second thing is the ego procrastination. This is the thing that I alluded to at the start, and this one's slightly different because you open maths and there's a slight anxiety, not because it's unclear, but because you might not be good at it. This is dangerous because if you try properly and fail, it's a hit to your ego, your identity. So instead of that, because you're scared of what it might mean if you fail, you scroll, you do something else. And there's this analogy in this book I think I read, it's called something like Why We Procrastinate. It's like a book about procrastination, but basically the king hired the best sculptor in the city to come and make him a creation. And it's an easy task for him, right? But there was a lot riding on that because he's known as the best sculptor in the city of, I don't know, Madagascar. Point being, there was a lot attached to that, so he didn't know where to start. And so he was scared to make a mistake. Whereas if he had just started and done it, that would have removed a lot of his anxiety. To make this one productive, don't avoid the subject. Expose yourself to it in micro doses. Exposure therapy, right? Just 1 hard question, 1 concept explained out loud. 5 minutes of uncomfortable thinking, that's it. Once the sculptor actually made the first it was easy. Momentum took over and it was easy to do. You build tolerance, and then tolerance leads to confidence. But actually, just before we get onto that, do you know what isn't overwhelming? Because I have the perfect thing for you that makes studying so easy to start. And it's Medley AI, which just dropped their shuffle mode. And it's really clever. You start answering questions and it figures out where you're weak in real time. Adjust the difficulty automatically. And if you're really struggling on something, it will actually put you in a full lesson to recover the material. It's basically a study session that builds around you as you go. No planning, no figuring out what to revise. Just open it and start, which if you're procrastinating, is kind of the whole problem solved. And while you're there, the Easter mocks are also still running. Limited slots. You can check all of that out with the link in the description. But back to the video. And then the third one, the overwhelmed procrastination. This one feels different to the others, but it's just as potent. This one feels heavy. You look at everything you need to do. The exams, deadlines, the chapters, everything you need to cover, and your brain just shuts down. It looks at all that and it thinks this is too much. And this is why students end up binge scrolling for hours and they don't even know why. And that's why I ended up doing that a lot of the time as well. Just lower the incline, as we talked about for this one. Don't attack the whole mountain. If you're climbing Mount Everest, if you just look at the 8,000 meter peak, no one is making that, bro. What you have to do is just look for base camp 1, right? And then from there, just base camp 2, and suddenly it's far, far more manageable. Just do 1 flashcard, 1 paragraph, 10 minutes a day, and you stay in that lane. Don't switch lanes. You stay in the academic lane, but you just adjust the intensity, okay? So now you know why you procrastinate, and you know how to combat them. You know that you're unconsciously, for all of these times you procrastinated, you had the choice, but you were always defaulting to the wrong one. Whereas now you have the option to lower the intensity. Remember the treadmill analogy, bro? That one's fire. You can adjust the speed. Instead of switching lanes, you can just lower the intensity so that you're still procrastinating the task, but in a productive way. Master productive procrastination and your grades will thank you. And if this video changed your life, because obviously it did, right guys? And if you found this useful, point being, you will find the Student Accelerator 10 times more useful. It's my full study course. Everything you need to know. Stuff like the secret sauce, I like this, but in all domains, all laid out in a really consumable, digestible, yummy format. And as you can see, it's worked for students all around the world. But also there's far more other bonuses and benefits, such as premium resources, accountability, weekly calls, and much, much more. If this interests you and you want to support me and also get further help for yourself, that is the best way you can do. And there'll be a link in the description. Anyway, I hope this video helped you. Leave a comment if it did, and I'll see you in the next one.
Pew 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 pew.